Oh, shoot. Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan, otherwise known as Old Man Builds. This is Joe. We're going to be talking about some, maybe some UFO, maybe some false flag, whatever it is, whatever those drones are flying over New Jersey. We're going to discuss it. What's going on, Joe?
Hey, Nathan. Hey, everybody. How are you today?
Doing great, man. Interesting how all this stuff's going down.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
So, yeah, we got a couple people in the chat right now. They got some ideas, man. It's just vertical takeoff and stuff like that. Well, yeah, well, if it's a drone it's doing that, that's for sure. But I'm more interested in how fast they're moving. You know what I mean? That glow that they put off, what is it?
Yeah, there's been a lot of different and sort of varying, conflicting sorts of reports as to like their speed and how they're moving and everything. Some are reporting them as slow moving, but capable of accelerated or faster speeds, but not like the way that those incidents are sort of described. Don't seem to be like the unexplainable types of speeds that are present in some other types of reports. More consistent with the slower speed sightings and things like that seems to be unusual, but not seemingly physics breaking movement potential. So, the ability to rapidly increase and decrease altitude being present, and being able to move sort of laterally and things of that nature, and hover. Those are the commonly reported attributes with slow moving. The fast moving are the ones that generally have the anomalous types of maneuvering, such as like it's such rapid acceleration that it'll go from hovering to zapped out into space, so to speak, almost instantaneously in that sort of effect.
So you live out there. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I mean, this is taking place where closer to where I just moved from. I had actually seen something that really is consistent with what's being seen now, but I saw that back in June or July. I was driving home at night, and when I tell you that even from a distance, it was just super apparent that whatever that light in the sky wasn't something normal.
Okay.
It was fixed in one spot. It wasn't moving. The light was brighter than any airplane or helicopter spotlight, searchlights that I've ever seen. Just so much more intense. It didn't have any sort of beam that was visible from it either, which I thought was unusual because it was very foggy out, and even as like headlights and stuff were passing, yeah, that was it. Even when headlights and stuff were passing, you would see the beams coming straight off of the headlight of the car. This thing was so much brighter than that, yet you couldn't see a path of the light beam, no matter where it was. I couldn't stop, so I had to take a moving photo. And I rolled down my windows and rolled under it at like maybe 5-10 miles an hour at most, and it was very silent. There was no helicopter noise. I kind of expected it to be a helicopter, but I didn't see the body of anything. All I could see was that light.
Really? So there was some kind of a orb around it or bubble, and it was just reflecting light, or do you think it was absorbing it?
Well, coming at it from how I was driving toward it, I actually drove directly underneath it. And I really the light was really all I could see. It seemed apparent that that light was attached to something. It wasn't just not like a star or something, and the light was split into two.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the other one.
So
That's the other one.
that was
Good.
on the approach to it, yeah. And that is, like I said, maybe 750 feet off the ground, 1,000 feet at most.
Wow. They got a whole bunch of stuff. So there's no way it's a regular drone then, huh? It's got to be something more, or what do you think?
I mean, for the size of it and the altitude of it, I would have expected to have heard something when I was driving underneath it. Even like running one of those DJI Maverick drones, like and a pretty good one at that. You could hear those things as they're on the approach and as they fly away, let alone when they're overhead. And those are very, very small, very, very small. And this was nothing like that. It was much bigger than that.
Okay. Well, let me pull this up real quick. This right here. So that's a normal drone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what it is at all, is it?
No, that's nothing like what I saw.
Okay. Gotcha. So there's other things. So we know it's not a jet. Here's a, see if I can pull this one up.
The best way I could describe the most of it that I saw, for what it's worth, was like what keeps on coming to mind was like a helicopter if it didn't have a tail, or like a rotor or anything like that. Like if it was just the fuselage of a helicopter, it kind of was like that.
Gotcha. This is another picture of what people say they saw.
Yeah. And that looks like an airplane to me.
Yeah, well, it looks like an airplane to me too. So I'm just asking you because you're out there. You know what I mean? You've seen these kind of things. So I'm just pulling it up off the internet. What people
Yeah,
are saying.
I'm definitely, and this is exactly what we should be doing and what everybody should be doing with the information that's out there right now, because there's so much information being pumped out, all of it seemingly conflicting, and we can only use our best judgment. It's really all we could do. Yeah, I mean that to me appears to be an airplane. I've heard all sorts of reports. I've heard that, and actually one of the most credible reports that I heard was from Ken Wheeler.
Okay.
Ken Wheeler was saying that the government knows exactly what they are because they're the government's, and that it's known tech, that they bought them. It's the technology of what it's capable of is somewhat classified, but we kind of get the gist of what it does. And he was saying that it is an eVTOL type drone that sort of like an Osprey, if you've ever seen those types of aircraft before. It could switch from like a standard drone setup to more of an airplane type setup with almost sort of like deployable wings, like sort of how like an F-14 back in the day used to be a swing wing design.
Yeah.
So at low speeds, it would automatically go out and be like a big winged thing, so it get maximum lift. But as it accelerated and needed that less, it benefited more from aerodynamics, so it would pitch the wings back into like almost like a full delta V shape. So similar to that, I think he was saying.
Well, that's interesting. It makes a lot more sense that they would be government owned instead of aliens out there, some kind of psyop. From what I understand, and Greer was saying that it's the people who were whistleblowers to what we actually have, and they put it out there and showed things off, and they said that they're going to come out with disclosure on it. You think that's a possibility at all?
I think so. And whether or not it's intentional disclosure or whether it's just more of a closed loop psyop, like just to see how the public reacts to swarms of drones flying overhead and unexplainable things and nobody doing anything about it. But not only the citizens, also the government, because one thing I kind of do believe, based on a lot of the regular people out there, is that uh, lower level and even decently higher level government officials that are elected officials, they're like freaking out and wanting answers, and they're not getting any. So, now they're stuck in a situation where they have to govern and start to make decisions, but have no information off of it. So that this PSYOP could ultimately be multi-tiered as far as, how they're trying to gauge the reactions. That's the part of this that I find very nefarious, and, that I don't like the most is testing the population's psychology on it.
Well, I remember back in the day they were talking about what is it, UFOs over Los Angeles, and immediately the military got involved. Immediately they tried to shoot him down, and there was no hesitation whatsoever. So I'm kind of confused here of why, if they didn't know what they were, why is our military not there? And if they do know what they were, it makes a lot more sense that our military isn't there. And I guess it goes to who's in charge and which part of government knows and which part doesn't. And is this going into like a black budget project where it's a need to know basis and we all didn't need to know until now?
Yeah, I mean, knowing just a little bit about military doctrine would help anybody that has doubt about what this is, who it is. They should look into that, because, like, for instance, if we have a fleet of ships out at sea and you come into a certain distance within that fleet, you're going to get notified. Then you're going to get warned. Then you're going to get warned. Then you're going to get intercepted. And way before you could ever even be a potential threat, if you not heed a single one of those warnings and ignored it all, whether you've ever fired a shot or not, whether you have fishing nets or cannons on your vessel, or whether it's a civilian aircraft or a military aircraft, you are getting blown out of the sky before you ever come anywhere near that fleet of ships. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You talk about our homeland, and we protect our homeland with the same exact amount of rigor. If you're a Russian jet flying across or near the line of the Bering Strait, and you cross into the United States territory over it, the doctrine is that we intercept that aircraft. We intercept that aircraft. And guess what? It might be a little bit of a cold war game, so to speak, as far as, like, are you actually going to shoot them down, or are you just going to follow them around, let them know you're there until they leave your airspace? And obviously, it's generally the latter. But this is what we do. If you go outside and you start pointing a laser pointer up at airplanes or in the sky in general and inadvertently hit something that you're not supposed to, be it a satellite, an aircraft, a helicopter, whatever the case may be, they could triangulate your position, knock on your door, and sit there and give you a problem. To what degree you're in, of trouble you end up in is another story. But they follow up on these things. They don't just simply let it slide.
Yeah.
So when you know all of these factors, if you don't have permission to be on a military base, you get warned, and then you get detained. If you're not detained and you give a problem, you get shot and killed. Judge, jury, and executioner. That's how it goes. These guys were going to storm Area 51. You remember this? They're like, do not storm Area 51. They're like, do not come into our military base. We are prepared for you. And, this is not a joke. They warn people because that was the real deal. So to think that we don't know what it is, and we're not interested in knowing what it is, but we're saying that they're not a threat because, well, I mean, they seem to be okay.
Yeah, it's not how the military works.
Yeah, go steal an airplane or borrow an airplane, okay? take it off from an airfield without any sort of radio contact whatsoever, and then ignore the radio calls. Do it. I dare you.
You'd be done. That would be it for you.
You're gonna end up with helicopters chasing you. You're gonna end up intercepted by a jet. And this is over rural America where it's like, oh man, I was just trying to dust my crop. Like,
Oh yeah.
This is the doctrine. So see past it. That's all. Like, I mean, it says it all.
So, being that they're probably military and stuff like that, why do you think they're doing it?
I don't know. There's a bunch of plausible reasons. One could be, I mean, again, I'll bring up the least probable of them all because, as dumb as I may think some of these people are, I don't think they're stupid. I mean, it could just be an act of stupidity on part of the government. Like, hey, yeah, okay, fly him around. Nobody can touch him anyway. Do your tests, and then when it's done, collect your data and be done with it. I very much doubt that's the case, but it could be. You could be looking at the psyops again, just to see how government and civilians react to this sort of incursion, to see what the tolerance level of it is, to see how long people will care before they don't, to see what people are willing to do to find out how far they're willing to push, whether they're willing to start building, 10-foot long Estes rockets in their garage and, testing their ingenuity, whatever the case is, like, something like that. I think that that's more plausible. Then there's one that I really haven't heard talked about, which is something I said on the cast last night, is something other countries are known to do. Okay, but not so much us, but we could be showing like a flex on other countries, where other countries, they know exactly, they could know that it's ours. They could see what it's doing. They could see that nobody could do anything about it. And if the funded police, which is basically military organizations in the United States at this part, which is a whole other problem, but if you have police, state governments and militia groups and so on, the National Guard and so on and so forth, that aren't even able to take care of this, what makes you think some 2-bit Russian situation could take care of any of this? The answer is that they can't. So it could be just like a quiet flex where we do it over our own skies, where we have control over it, so to speak, just to show them what they're in for if they play games. I mean, the uptick in it obviously came quite a bit after that ICBM was shot, or the medium range ballistic missile, whatever they shot. So I think that could be the case.
Well, okay, so they're not suspending air travel. That's one of the big keys of, they know exactly what it is.
Yep.
Because that'd be the first thing they do, right? Is they suspend all air travel in the area, not letting any planes go in there, identify what's going on, and then taking assess the situation and take action. They're not doing any of that.
Yeah. You're right. I've heard it reported that one of the main issues that they're running into right now has to do with the bureaucracy, which I find to be interesting, especially with Trump coming into office and his, disdain for bloated government and bureaucracy, seemingly. But they were saying that the FAA ultimately oversees anything to do with the airspace.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it has to do with like military, the FAA is still involved in everything. So they're the ones that really call the shots, so to speak, as to what's going to happen in the sky. But then if they were to need to be intercepted and shot down, now you're talking about DOD. And then you have the FBI investigating it. So, what's going on? Well, we don't know. Ask the FBI. The FAA is not going to make a decision until the FBI says it's a threat. So every bureaucratic organization is delegated some small portion of responsibility for mitigating all this, and none of them have, any sort of cohesion as far as the information or the decision making. And that was one thing that they were saying was a major issue.
Well, that's kind of like, I don't know. I'm calling bull on that for one reason: the distance of time. So this is not some new phenomena. You took your picture 3 months ago or more, and
More, yeah.
then now this has been going on all over there for a month. There's no way that the gears move that slow in government. Look, I understand maybe if you want to get some factual information or something in a file, yeah, that's slow, but not when it comes to our security. It's just not. It's not plausible.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, but at the same exact time, I will say, just to play devil's advocate,
Okay.
nothing surprises me anymore with all of the ridiculousness and the failures and just like it's all such a disgusting proposition at this point that nothing would shock me. I mean, one thing that we've known to be true for a long time that does support that something like that could be a factor, not the cause, but a factor, is the compartmentalization not only of these bureaucratic organizations, okay, but within themselves. And as far as who's privy to what information and what the pecking order of all that is, because a lot of these departments, they have SAPs and stuff like special access programs. That means that you could have a top secret clearance and ask about something, and they could deny its existence. Just plain and simple. You could be the guy running the show and they could just say, well, what's your reason to know? And if you have no reason to know and you're not read in on the program, you're never going to get read in. And then
Yeah.
within those SAPs are deeper levels of compartmentalization where only some people know certain parts. So realistically, you're dealing with a very small few number of people, if any, that potentially have all the information at any given time, which is a good and a bad thing. I mean, that's good because, if there was an invasion and they capture them and torture them and whatever, you hope that they die with what they know. But
Yeah. Well,
the compartmentalization is a good way to avoid that.
I understand that aspect, but look, if it's that compartmentalized, then somebody over there is just going to say, you know what, we're just going to shoot it down. And until your department that is a very few that know come in and stop them, that's what's going to happen. And if the president himself doesn't know, then it's game over. He's just going to shoot him down. So at what point do you disclose to him, hey, this is what's going on? And then if he knows what's going on, the question has to be, is he allowing it to go on, or can he just not stop it himself? So if you take the alien angle, maybe he can't stop it. Maybe it's something that he just can't do anything about. But if it's us and he's trying to figure out who's at the core of it and why they're doing it, maybe it goes on a little longer, as long as they don't threaten anything.
Well, there's one thing too that I think that it's been in the back of everybody's head, but it hasn't been discussed. What if these things are actually not ours, but extraordinarily dangerous? And if you were to intercept them, you'd have a bigger problem on your hands.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think that we've all tried to, just blame the government or whatever. Maybe the fact is that they do know, but the news isn't good news, and the answer is, well, we really can't do anything about it, and the only thing we could do is, sit and not panic, and hope for the best. Do I think that's the case? Probably not. But is that possible? That if you're the one sitting there making that decision and you're like, okay, listen, we could try to intercept this thing, but here's what's going to happen if we do. You attack one, it's going to cause catastrophic damage over a highly populated area. Okay. Mm-hmm. And once you engage the one, they all go in. And then they start hitting various and then we have a much, much bigger problem on our hands. There's no way to blow them up, because if you blow them up, you're going to cause the damage. And and if you hit one, we're getting hit all over. That could be the case too. An extraordinarily dangerous situation where you're being held in a corner at checkmate is really what it is. Like I mean, that's possible.
So what I think freaks people out is all these Bible prophecies of what's to come. And you know what I mean? Is there going to be something like this in a full on, they're coming out and showing us that they're here type of thing? Is that a possibility in this? Do you think that someone's just playing on that, or is it actually something that's true that's coming forward finally, that, since everything else is lining up, this is the next step?
I mean, I think that that again is just such a difficult topic generally, because there's two different sides of that same coin. Is it, so that happens, is it real or is it fake?
Yeah.
And then what do you believe? Like, there comes a point in time, especially with technology and stuff, and I think that we, on the civilian level, we get closer and closer to it all the time, where there's things that are so convincing that what's real and what's not. Do you trust your eyes anymore?
Well,
Can you trust what's going on? I heard one thing that they're like, they could stage in, like with Project Bluebeam and stuff, like you could stage an alien event with holograms in the sky, or swarms of drones in the sky, or whatever you want to do. And you don't even have to have the extreme and insane technology. You could literally just fly, a squadron of fighter jets inside of the hologram and have them inflict damage that would give a very real effect to the fact that there's like an alien attack, and then they could you could utilize that leverage to unite the world, and in the process also strip every single human being's rights away from them.
oh yeah. Well, what kind of concerns me, and I'll just throw this out there when they get to like the prophecy thing, is off the coast of California, they had the earthquakes, and in Northern California, they were predicting tsunamis. Now that was probably a week ago, and it kind of goes to Southern California too, because the San Andreas Fault goes right down, right through Los Angeles, and right through by where I live. So if there are those earthquakes in both, then it's kind of like, I hate to say this, but to most people, they're dumping Sodom and Gomorrah back in the ocean, if you know what I mean. And that's what people think of those two areas most times, especially what's going on in Hollywood these days. And I think it's kind of like biblical end of times. They start seeing UFOs. They start seeing things go flying around. We start getting more and more weather patterns that go off, and it's kind of feeling like it's heading in the wrong place. We got, they got global warming, and there's no amount of, car smog that's going to make that happen on a global scale. And there's no amount of cow farts. And I don't care how many politicians stick corks in cows' butts, it's not going to matter. I mean, for God's sakes, man, there's something else going on. And then we're also getting to prophecy time where the pole shift may be happening, and people are talking about that. I guess the whole thing in total freaks people out.
Yeah, I think Tool wrote a song about this whole entire thing. Learn to swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The whole entire thing. I mean, you're very right. The writing is sometimes on the wall as far as shifts in our our Earth's reality, so to speak. It's hard to say. I mean, I try not to be apocalyptic in ways, because I'm under the belief that, like, listen, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and all you really can do is the best you can with anything. So I try not to focus on that too much, but it, the world's actually in, like, as much as it's all negative and stuff all over the place, the world's in a better place today than it really ever has been in. So we like to look at the negatives all the time as far as, like, humanity just like being in a terrible place and we've all gone to hell in a handbasket. But there's really less wars and less killing and less tyranny and less, genocide and less starvation and things like that now than there's really ever been. So we're probably like in context, not doing that as bad as we could be.
No, I agree.
Like, I mean, knowing human nature, that's just how you know that most people generally, even if they're selfish to a degree, are inherently not bad and out to harm others. Because if even 10% of people were genuinely bad people, the world would be a very, very, very awful place.
Yeah, but that's the human aspect of it.
That
I'm
is, but I
looking
mean,
more of
when
the
you're thinking
planet
about like
aspect of it.
Armageddon and prophecy and all this,
Well, I'm
I
not
mean,
talking about Armageddon between like countries that causes the death of us all, which God knows that we're getting close with stupid people with that as well.
mm,
I'm talking more of the global impact of what the earth is telling us itself,
yeah,
the changes it's going through. That's what I'm concerned with.
that's fair.
People are stupid and they're going to do stupid things all the time, and there're going to be a lot of deaths because of it, because people's egos, or they just want something they want to claim, and it's really ignorant of them to do it, but they're doing it anyway. And that's not the part I want to focus on. It's more of the planet is reacting to something, and it probably has nothing to do with the people on top. We're probably, a little anthill to them. They could care less. You know what I mean?
Right.
As far as what the planet's doing, it's just gonna. That's more of a end of days prophecy I'd be worried about.
Yeah, I mean, in context of what we're talking about, though, I mean, it's like if you knew, if you let's say that they had information that we didn't have that leads us to believe that, like, we're in natural end times as far as the Earth cycles and this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't see what the benefit would be to start this, distraction, so to speak.
Okay.
I mean, it's not to say that there couldn't be one, but if most
Well,
people are going to get wiped out, what the hell's the difference?
yeah, but I think what they ultimately have been trying to do for years was take us to a global system with everybody in it. There's too many people with too many egos that want power that won't let that happen. I mean, you can change all the laws, you can get rid of borders, you can do all that, but you can't get rid of the ego and the power from the people at the top.
No.
And until you do that, it won't change. If it was just simply up to get rid of all of them and restart and get new people in there, and I'm not saying any harm to those old people, I'm just saying just change them out. And what would happen? I mean, could we get to a globalist society? Would we even want to? Is it what a bunch of powers that sit over top of us and try to control us, or would we rather have one? I mean, in the end, it's still a bunch of people doing a bunch of things. They still have governors. Then they would just have people that control each country, and they'd have one head at the top. But is it really any different? The only way that makes it different is if you start putting out UFOs out there and give everybody a reason to change everything. You know what I mean? Because there's no
Right.
reason to change it otherwise.
Right. I mean, I think that like one of the biggest problems with people that, like, have been pushing globalism, and I think it's like been a societal problem generally for a long time, bit of the human condition, is like people denying basic human nature constantly. There's certain things that are just inherent within our being. One of those inherent behaviors is factioning, and you could call it what you want and divide it however you want and govern it however you want, but
Hmm.
there's always going to be factions.
Yeah, always.
And you could take 1 million people and split them all up randomly and put the 1 million people in split them up into different rooms of 100 people and leave them there for a day, and over the course of the day you'll see the separation occur in every single one of the room with every single one of the 1 million people. And that's it. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Well, I think, some of this stuff, like you said, they're hiding something. And if they know it, we don't know it yet. And they had a down drone over there in New Jersey, and they have everybody staying away from it. But what I didn't see was a bunch of FBI tape. I didn't see the military going right away. I saw that it was civilian firefighters that were over there pulling it out,
Yeah.
which means that it may not be as severe as we think.
Well, I mean, that report came back that was a civilian regular drone.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one they set out to look for and they didn't find it. But here's one thing I'll tell you, and this is just a fact, and how they know, I don't really know, but like this goes right into like all the stuff that they were testifying to in front of Congress and stuff too. They have recovery programs. And these recovery programs, don't be fooled. They're not only for unidentified craft, they're for any non-civilian craft, whether it's government, US government owned, foreign, anything like that. And it doesn't matter where something drops out of the sky. If it's military, the US government knows about it and they're on it. Not always the first ones to get there, but they know about it before anybody else, and they're on it.
Well, what concerns me about that is they let that balloon float all over the U.S. Then they just picked up somebody in California for having going to set off drones or have drone footage of our Air Force bases. So that's what's really concerning people is it's like a sinking ship around here. It just keeps putting cracks everywhere, and we're not fixing it.
Yeah.
They say, oh well, we watched him for a while. What? Just go pick him up the first day. You know the guy's a traitor. You know he deserves to go to jail. Guantanamo Bay is where he'd be telling me the truth, not here on the States. I mean, why wait until he goes to get on a plane? I just don't understand. Just get him right away. This isn't a sting operation for somebody like, you know what I mean? Who just committed mail fraud or something. This is somebody who's taking pictures of our bases. This is balloons over our whole United States. That should be taken care of immediately.
Well, I mean, counterintelligence is just as complex, if not, more so than regular, reconnaissance and intelligence. A lot of times with counterintelligence, what you end up doing is you pick up on one of these things and you basically got somebody caught. Now, whether it's a drone or a spy or a guy or a bad actor or whatever it is, you could be exactly on to who they are, where they are, and what they're up to and what they're about to do. But the fact is that once you make the decision to shoot it out of the sky, to go in, arrest him, and hold him, as a prisoner or whatever the case is, once you do that, you lose your ability to gather intel off of the situation because they're no longer on the playing table. So a lot of times what they'll do at the forefront of things is they will leave it alone to be able to see exactly what it is, what it's doing, where it's going, who it belongs to. But there comes 2 points in time. One is when you gathered all the information that you needed and now it's time to act and you have to act, or where it's become so, flagrant that you don't have a choice anymore but to act. You know, like, so when you have 50 of these things coming, you know, from the coast into the mainland and stuff like that, and then they're doing their thing, like, so shoot 48 of them out of the sky and see what the other two do. You know, like, or something. But I mean, one thing that Ken Wheeler was saying was that what he believes they are is a type of eVTOL drone, okay, that is considered an LM, which is a loitering munition. Very interesting, cool, and dangerous technology if you think about it, but a military application nonetheless. So basically, you could send up a payload of of whatever type of weaponry or surveillance technology you want to. You could have it just sit there and hang around and wait for orders, and it could sit there and do its exploration and monitor a situation and monitor an entire area automatically, and in some cases, make a decision to attack a target, let's say, or to surveil a target. And because there's so many of them and they all work in unison, these are very similar to the NGAD wingman, okay, that they actually use on F-35s now. And I think F-18s or something also might be able to use those wingmen. But what they do is, or F-15s. But what they do is there's one airplane, one fighter jet, and then he's got a whole bunch of resources that have different capabilities around him that act as automatic wingmen, feed him data, so he's got air superiority, and then also act as a save my ass in case I need you. This could just be the passive version of that.
Okay, but look, I understand an individual, and you want to get all the information. They have no excuse for the balloons. None.
No, you're right,
The
man.
communication going on those balloons already passed the information along before you even saw it spotted. So I'm sorry, but there's no excuse for that. There's none. It's incompetence. That's the excuse, is incompetence. Somebody's incompetent at the top. That's it. Because let me tell you, if I was at the top, that balloon wouldn't make it a foot over this soil at all. It'd be down. The person, maybe you let it go to see the communication and where it goes after that. But once you have all of that, why are you waiting for him to try to make it out of the country? If you know he's done and you have all the contacts, immediately take him. Don't wait for him to get out of the country. Don't, not at the airport. You do it right there or whatever he's staying, and you just search the living daylights out of the place and take, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, like the situation, like the balloon, like you were saying, there was no reason whatsoever that should have ever been allowed over our airspace, because provided it is what they say it was, right? That's all you need to know. You don't need to know the why or where it was headed, what they're trying to figure out or whatever. How you don't need to know that. Like, fact is, you know who it came from, and their intention was to gather intel on us, and you could assume the worst at that point and be totally safe and in the clear to do so, because it's, again, it's a bad actor. It's China.
Well, somebody's saying that there are drones all over the place, and it's not just in New Jersey. It's not just an America thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, like, it's impossible to say where it started. I mean, I shared it right at the beginning of this cast. I was on Eastern Long Island and saw that months and months and months ago, but it started to gain traction over the UK air bases first, where they house B-52s and F-22s. Then they had it at Manchester Airport, and then Jersey, but also Jersey, New York, Texas, and Oregon, I think, all have similar sightings at this point. Now, one thing that all of them do have in common, for what it's worth, is that they're all coastal states.
Gotcha.
And frankly, if you want to be freaked out, that means they're in the Atlantic, Pacific, and the Gulf of Mexico. If that's where they're, stationed, who knows? But
Well, it's definitely interesting. So I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments too. And how do I know it wasn't hacked over the, why it's flying? Two things you never want to do as a country: let intelligence out and look weak. And as soon as that balloon flies over, you've done both. Now, they could get out that, hello, we're here. And let me tell you, that's too much for me right there. That's it. Because you look weak. You look like you're a pathetic civilization that can't handle your own. And I don't care for that. So it goes down. That balloon goes down. There's no getting around that. And I don't care if you hack them, try to be smart about it. That doesn't work for me. Just, project strength, take care of the homeland. If this flew over one of, another country, that'd be downed right away. There's no question about it. They'd just look through the wreckage and find out who it was from and take care of it that way. There's no other way to look at it. They're not going to wait for somebody to cyber hack this thing or whatever they're going to do. They'd do it from the ground.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's what's surprising to me, I think, more than anything, is that with all of the attention that it's getting, that more regular people haven't tried to get to the bottom of it beyond just taking videos of it. Or maybe they are, and they're just not reporting on that because that would just, further a narrative that's not looking to take place. But, I mean, think about all the people that have their own airplanes and, have access to a runway and stuff. What prevents them from, getting a closer look? I mean, I find it hard to believe that out of the millions and millions of people, that not a handful of them are trying to get up closer to these things.
Well, yeah. How high are they in the sky? Did it say?
They vary quite a bit. I mean, they have some that look like they're flying right over houses within a couple few hundred feet, like sort of like the one I was showing you, were lower. And then they were saying that they have pilots and stuff. In fact, I think the one in Eugene, Oregon, that they reported came from a commercial pilot or something to that effect. And they were saying that there were a few of them, and one of them was at their altitude around 30,000. They were saying that there was a couple lower than them, and at least one at maybe 50,000 plus. So obviously there's, a little bit of and that the one that in that particular report, the pilot had on the radio contact, that those were the ones that he was saying, he's like, they're moving at an incredible speed, a speed which I can't define. So again, is it even the same thing?
Yeah. Well, it's just strange that they would let it go on for so long, even if it was a psyop or something like that. Like, look, I'm sorry, I don't think anybody's going to freak out if they put aliens on the streets in New York. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't buy it. Not in this day and age, in the 50s or something like that. But now everybody watches Star Trek. They probably think it's a cool event. You know what I mean? They throw a parade for them or something. And then God knows what would happen. But I don't think the situation is quite the same as what it was.
Yeah. Well, I think that where my problem with this is that I just and it's been this way for so long, but ever since I've been around, but there's a dynamic with the American people and the government where they've really established themselves as an authority with no accountability to the citizens. And they exist by virtue of them serving us. And that seems to have long since been forgotten. You know, when that guy walked into some congressional hearing, it wasn't the UAP one, it was another one. He literally looked at, I think it was the border control guy, the one that just is getting reappointed now. He literally looked at them and said, "You work for me. Don't get this messed up. You work for me. I'm a tax-paying American citizen. You
Yeah.
work for me. Don't you forget this." You know, and uh, this it feels like, you know, you go to the doctor and you have terminal cancer, and they're like, "Yeah, well, we can't tell them. It's bad news.
Yeah.
We can't tell. Just whatever. You know, he's gonna die anyway. What are you gonna get him all worked up for?" No, doctors have to make that have that conversation every single day, and it's not an easy conversation. And it's not only the person that has the cancer that's hurt; it's the entire family, the friends, the fallout of it all, and whatever type of discombobulation it causes. Like, but like everything else, it's managed.
By the way, that was absolutely hilarious when Tom Homan got up there and just put those people in their place.
Oh yeah,
And they asked him, well, what law did they break? And then he cited the actual law. See, absolutely the most beautiful thing in the world. It was just like, yeah, top notch, buddy.
oh
That
yeah,
was amazing.
yeah.
Everybody wishes that if they ever got in front of Congress that they could do the exact same thing.
Right. Well, he's a smart guy just by virtue of. Are you in favor of separating families? He's like, no, we'll deport them all. We'll deport them all together. It's fine, whatever. Look,
Like,
I'm not trying to make it political, but I mean,
how many times have you sat there and said, I don't really give a fuck, dude? Seriously, how much time you have or how much time you have left on your little thing for your little Congress here? The answer is the answer, and I don't really care. You know what I mean? That's how I would take it, because I don't care if you say, oh, I got 2 minutes and I need 2 minutes more because that's what the chairman said I have time for. Dude, stick it. The answer is what it is, and you better deal with it. I don't care what kind of little political garbage you're trying to pull. If you put my butt in that seat, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. You know, for what it's worth, I understand like the suppression of the energy technologies and the anti-gravitics and the this and the that way, way more than I understand like something like this. Like, there's no reason that we shouldn't be entitled to answers, and we should always be entitled to answers. You know, maybe the details can remain a little fuzzy for various reasons, but the meat and potatoes of it, what does it take to step up and say, yeah, they're ours? Whatever you're seeing, I mean, it's nothing extraordinary. Thank you. You know, and that's it. And people will be like, "Oh, did you see that? It's incredible." What do you think happened when they went from within 20 years? They went from flying biplanes to, you know, fighter turboprops to jets in 20 years.
Yeah.
From 1920 to 1940, biplanes to jets. What do you think the first person that saw a jet airplane fly thought to themselves? Like, lose your mind. Like, there's nothing like that.
Yeah. No kidding.
But we moved on, didn't we?
Yeah, that screaming engine alone will get you as soon as that thing starts pulling up to speed. By the way, it was so funny. It says political correctness right here. It's gone a long time ago. When your president trolls you and he trolls his political opponents like Trump does, it's over for you anyway. There's no political correctness there anymore. I'm sorry. When you got a media that's against one guy and they try to say that they're not, and that all they do is rail on them every day, there's no political correctness there. It's over, man. And now,
I think people have caught on to that trick, though. I mean, maybe not everybody, but
oh no, not everybody. That's for sure.
a lot of people that used to, you know, drink the Kool-Aid, they threw that crap up, you know, and I mean, there's only so apparent and blatant that you could be about something, and that's sort of it.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised he's not trolling everybody in New Jersey right now about it. You know what I mean? Because that just seems like his personality that's what he'd be doing.
You know, I don't want to say that I'm proud of Trump for how he's handling this post-election, because I mean, the part of me that actually really likes him loves when he's just like, a dick. Where you sit there and he says something and you're like, oh, why, dude? But it's the best and you kind of know it. And I love that. But I mean, that's like for the entertainment purpose of it. For what it's
Yeah.
worth, like I think he had enough experience from his last administration and then the 4 years following that he realizes a lot of times, now like being quiet is just as, if not more valuable than being outspoken. Because when you're outspoken at certain points and you take some kind of extreme view, but it's not all that frequently, it holds a lot more weight.
Yeah.
So, I think he's trying to avoid trouble so he can actually get into office and start swiping the pen and get to work. So,
I'll be honest with you, man. I don't care which side it is. As long as you get in there and tell the truth and you don't care who you piss off, I'm okay with that. But I don't want a political garbage narrative. Not at all. But if your personality is adversarial, you know what I mean, a little bit, and you just like to push people's buttons and get them to react, I'm all good with it, man. And I could care less which side of the aisle you're on. But
yeah,
I just think it's funny.
agree with that, man. I just want somebody that's gonna get some kind of job done, some kind of job.
Yeah,
done.
without more taxes or more regulations or more laws.
Yeah, that's it. I really appreciate the platform he ran on for what it's worth, and I don't really say that about politicians all too often, but yeah, I agree. We should probably get rid of a lot of these three-letter organizations, and the system needs to lose a lot of weight.
Yeah. Well, it'd be simpler. Now we can actually get to the point of what we want to get to. You know what I mean? We don't have to go through every agency. You know how frustrating that is to try to go through every agency? I mean, man, streamline it. I mean, they don't even have people showing up for work right now. They got them still out at home study or whatever they call it, homework. I don't know. It sounds like they need to be fired, and let's just get the people that want to show up and deal with them.
See, I don't know that this is a popular opinion, but it's one that I've held for a long time. And I always feel like if you run for public office, that you should do so with a fear of the gallows. Like that's how I personally feel. Like I feel like, whenever you're in a position to sit there and take control over people, yes, we know that not everybody's going to like every single thing that you do or don't do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to act in such a way that that if you do something real bad and you get to enough people, that they're going to be banging at your door with pitchforks and torches. And it really ought to be that way, because at the end of the day, when you wield that kind of power, the weight requires that on the other side, that if you abuse that power, that the consequence for that abuse is catastrophic. That's what it ought to be. And it's that fear that keeps people in line from just being bought, sold, and doing whatever kind of nonsense they want to do on their own personal level. That's not good for the people that put them there in the first place. Like it strengthens the thought process. And in contemporary times, I think that the best way to do something like that would be to, when something's found to be a constitutional violation, when a government, a state, or even federal, whatever, when they vote to pass something and they pass something, or they pass it at midnight on a Sunday because they love to do that sort of thing at the state level, especially, that if it goes through the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court says this is unconstitutional, that anybody and everybody who was affected negatively and tangibly from that unconstitutional law, should really be able to seek compensation, directly, not only from the state, but also from the people on the individual basis, personal liability against them, because they swore an oath to the Constitution, and what they passed ultimately was found to be in violation of that oath. Therefore, they did not work in accordance with their position, but rather of their own personal interest. See that, and frankly, I guess that's a story for another day. I'm playing with suing the state of New York in that exact fashion.
Yeah.
So, and they're going to want to throw it out of court, and you got to hope it ends up in front of a judge that is like, hold on a second, there's something to this. This does defeat immunity because there was a constitutional violation, So, but I mean, I wouldn't expect to be successful in something like that, at least at first. But I'll tell you what, it'd probably draw attention and raise an eyebrow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with this whole drone situation, we're just, I don't know, we're just going about it wrong somehow. And it's not just the reporting and everything. How are you so dumb as a society that we sit here and we complain about it for over a month, yet there are people out there, for stupid things riot? I mean, yet we're over here just sitting on our fists and leaning back on our thumb while these things are flying around. There's got to be something more there. There's got to be, hey, we're telling you guys, but don't let it out to the people yet. You know what I mean? So that you don't ask a bunch of questions. Or is our media that garbage that they can't get out there and do their job? I mean, which is it? Because I'd like to know. It's not like it's a very difficult thing. You got cameras, you got a bunch of them, put them up in the sky and figure it out. You want some infrared? Put it on infrared. Let's see it. You know what I mean? But how are we not looking into this? And then why are there not like 50,000, footages from people who just have their own cameras and seeing something and changing it? And let's see it. But there's not. This whole thing stinks. It really just stinks.
Yeah. There's so many reasons that it stinks that bad. Those reasons that you just said, and then some. Gaslighting is a huge problem, because what that does is it tames some people and riles up others. And it makes even the most, in the know person on the subject unable to decipher the truth whatsoever.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. If you ask a question, you get 6 different answers. If you look at something and they're like, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's like, well, which is it? It's this one. Are you telling me the truth? Yeah. It's, well, what about those other 2 times? Well, no, those other 2 times I was lying. How do I know you're not lying now? Well, you don't.
Yeah.
This is the problem. This is why marriages break down, man.
I want to know the guy that says it's Iran Mothership, dude. That was like you're getting trolled after that. Like, what was he thinking? Like, do they have the technology? I know they can fly drones. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Do you really think that they brought a mothership over here? Like a mothership? He didn't say they brought a ship or they hid it in a shipping container. He said there's a big mothership. Like there's an alien mothership flying the Iranian flag, having these things around here hovering around. Man, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that and I was like, yeah, I don't buy that one. I mean, listen, if we have a foreign adversary with a vessel capable of holding 200 SUV-sized drones within an hour of our coast, and even if it's submersible, let's be honest, no, I'm so, there's just basic technology and stuff that regular ordinary people have that would pick up on that. I mean, what do you think in the shipping lanes of the New York Bight? Okay, which is where this would be taking place. The literal international shipping lanes of the New York Bight where every vessel is equipped with sonar. Okay, you think for real that nobody's going to be like, wait, what's this literal massive thing that's capable of holding 200 SUVs beneath the surface? Like, I don't know, like on what planet. I don't know on what planet. Like they these people come up with this shit. Like, I just don't.
I mean, how did that news anchor sit there and listen to that? Like, I mean, wouldn't you just go, "You're full of it"? Like,
Okay, well, let's play this card for a second. Let's say that's true. Who are we? Who are we friggin' who are we like wrapping the rope around the neck of for treason at that point for not taking action on that? Who in the military? Who in the military is getting roped up? Like, the what top general for literally ignoring an enemy invasion? No, well, that was the Department of Defense's job. Go talk to them. Yeah, okay, man. Come on. Like, can we stop? Do you know how you know that we have a missile defense system that we don't talk about? Okay. Do you know how we know? Because the Department of Defense is like, oh, well, all of our anti-missile defense stuff for the most part is deployed overseas. That's how you know. All the stuff you guys know about, we gave that to other countries.
oh my God. Horrible.
If that's the truth, then again, whose neck is getting roped?
Yeah.
But it's not true. That's the thing. It's not true. Thomas
Yeah.
Gordon said so back in 1985. It's not true.
Wow. Yeah, they're doing it, and there's somebody that they know are doing it, and they're just playing a trick on us. The crazy thing is, I don't think half people are buying it. They don't even pay attention to it. So, if their whole thing was to shock the public, they got the people who are normally concerned about this kind of stuff, and that's it. And they didn't get the rest of them because they didn't care.
Well, let me ask you this: what are the odds that this is the big festering neon distraction? You got to ask yourself one of two questions here, right? What is this taking your eyes off of, or what is this blending in and covering up? Okay. So, is there something else going on that it's like drones over? You know what? Something so obvious is going to be happening over here. So, let's bring everybody's eyes to New Jersey right now, and then this could go on, and everyone's just going to be focused on this drone nonsense, and then that could go on the side, right? Or let's just say, and this is probably the less likely example, but let's just say you have actual UFOs, UAPs, something that cannot be explained or is of negative consequence or something along those lines. It's becoming more evident that these things are there, they're being seen by people, is raising concern. So the answer to cover them up is just to flood the sky with a whole bunch of nonsense. Then it all becomes one phenomena that you can have everybody sitting there going, government secrets again, here we go. Yeah, and you have some people getting close-up pictures of them, and it's like, well, that clearly looks like a drone. Okay, they're drones. We'll call them drones. Now, all of a sudden, everything in the sky, whether it's an airplane with people flying to Florida, or a helicopter reporting on drones, or actual drones, or UFOs, they're all just drones. you know
They're all just drones.
Right, there are things in the sky that aren't the moon. you know so, like, I mean, if you think about it, right, that's what a criminal would want to do if they commit a crime. They would want to get into a very, very crowded place and then just blend in and act like nothing, because then it's very hard to pick out who the guy was.
Wow.
So that's a possibility too. And then they don't have to explain the UFOs because they'll just let people speculate that they're drones.
That's so bad. But it's so true. I mean, I agree with you. They just put it out there and then everybody repeats it because they don't know any better. And they probably do and they don't care. It's just a popular line like, oh, this got so many clicks because we called it a drone. So let's keep calling it a drone so we can keep getting the clicks.
I think they went with drone because it's something that people are somewhat familiar with in a neutral way. Like a drone these days is synonymous with somebody riding a mountain bike down, a slope, and the drone is following them and filming them in 4K. A
Yeah.
drone is synonymous with something that you got for Father's Day, and you fly over your town and sit there and go, "Oh, I never knew this was there," or whatever. That's what drones are synonymous with. Before that, drones were synonymous with UAVs, really, and
Yeah.
predators and stuff like that, where they were more of a military thing. But it drifted away from that. If you would just say the word drone to me, I wouldn't think predator drone. I would think, DJI Mavic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I think that's why that term was really used for this, is because it could really be either of those things without having to differentiate, and people are familiar with them and neutral about them. It's I think that's why.
Yeah, we should probably cover the tech part of this. Let me just tell you something right now. They have way more advanced stuff than you've ever seen. I mean, think about it. The SO-71, we knew about it, 20 years after when they built it? So, and it was way ahead of its time. They have way more better tech than we can think of. So if they wanted to move freely everywhere, they possibly can. There's no question that we have something that looks like an alien vehicle that flies around at super fast speeds. There's just no question about it. I mean, the military bases that are underground that we don't know of and that we have people staying away from, yeah, they're there too. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff out there that's just our military doing it, and we don't want to admit it, or we want to think it's aliens, and it's really our military that's doing it because it's like they're trolling us. They know that they're doing it, but they're not going to tell us anything. So I absolutely believe they have every single ship that they say they do, without question.
Now, here's this is deductive reasoning, okay? But I just want to present to you how we ought to know that the observable phenomena that come up every so often when we're talking on your channel, is and has been in play and practice, and not in the way that we generally think, okay? Because the way that the military has primarily adopted these technologies is hidden in plain sight, okay? Now, I think the best example of this was when the SEALs went in and killed Osama bin Laden, okay? Because let's be real here, they took 2 Black Hawk helicopters. Have you ever seen a Black Hawk helicopter?
Yeah, I have.
Yo, you're talking about a piece of equipment.
Yeah.
It's huge, it's loud, it's fast. There's no mistaking it. The thing's in your area, and you're just sitting there looking around like, where is it? It's probably too far away for you to even see. And when the thing's finally next to you, it's like, it's a huge, massive, bulky piece of awesome equipment. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Now, they flew 2 of these things, not one, but 2 of them, into Pakistan undetected, landed in a guy's compound in his front effing yard, took him out and expected to get away. And obviously, they screwed up on the one of them a little bit, messed it up. And guess what? They needed to get out of there and get out of there fast. But aside from taking out Osama bin Laden and loading his body into the working Black Hawk, they had to blow the other Black Hawk up into pieces and make sure that its technology was broken. That was priority number one. Leave the corpse behind, but take out all the critical stuff, and they did. How did they fly into Pakistan with no notification, no permission, no anything, and go completely undetected? Two Black Hawk helicopters. You need to ask yourself these questions. Oh, well, they had advanced stealth technology. Advanced stealth technology, that's cool. I mean, yeah, there's things you could do to maybe minimize radar cross sections and stuff like that when you're talking about stealth. But it's a helicopter. The thing has a massive spinning rotor and puts up turbulence. How do you minimize that radar cross section? Well, they know how, and whatever it is probably the observable phenomena that we've been discussing.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not just that, the sound of it. Like, they have to minimize the sound as well so that you can't hear them coming. So, yeah, there's a lot to that, man. They have a lot more techniques than we're aware of. But yeah, I live by 2 military bases, man, and they Blackhawks come in. Wow, that's an impressive sight.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, they own their own satellite. Yeah, they can pretty much see you picking your nose on the street if they wanted to. And they can follow you anywhere you go. There's no question about that.
Now imagine if that's why they've kept the B-52 in service for 75 years. And it'll be 100 plus years old if it ever gets retired. That's an awfully big aircraft to sit there and just throw some, cutting edge stealth technology in and be like, oh, look at this. Now we have a massive, loud aircraft that we can fly wherever we want, do whatever we need to do, and drop huge payloads.
Yeah.
Because other than that, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, they've already probably replaced it with a lot of stuff. And some of the stuff they build is kind of, like you said, smaller in nature, where they're not going to have those heavy payloads. So, yeah, I've seen quite a bit of that, man. Just like there's an Air Force museum and you go over there and you check everything out and you're in awe of what they have sitting on the ground. Well, what if you saw the new stuff? Like, how much better is that? Because the stuff they have on the ground sitting there in the museum is impressive.
Yeah. Well, they just came out with the replacement for the B-2, right? The B-21. And it's the same exact UFO looking, flying wing, except it's this one's almost a complete triangle. That's all.
I saw that triangle one on a ship. Yeah, they got pictures of that thing everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they definitely have some UFO tech going on. They solved it back with T.T. Brown. They already knew the technology. And once they figured it out, it wasn't hard to build it better once they had it.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, listen, if you said you could know anything from any one place, like I'd be like taking the Skunk Works right now. I just wanted to see what Lockheed Martin has, and then the rest would fall into place from there. Anything else I wanted to know would fall right into place right from there.
You know what? Sure. Give me the hard hat or whatever they wear over there, man. I'm joining. Just to be around it would be cool. They have a lot of cool things that come through those doors. So even when they go to rebuild old craft or something like that, and you see them over there taking the wood and they're manufacturing it, like they made that German fighter plane that they weren't able to deploy in World War II. I don't remember the name of it. But even when they did that was cool.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, right. They had the flying wing working back then pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, World War II, they had the flying wing. There's no way they don't have a round craft by now, especially if you learn the fact that what they did to the wings on the SR-71 on the stealth fighter. And you see that they're over there putting in like static electricity and stuff like that. And they're putting in scalar. How do they not know that making a round craft and making it spin would be even better? How do they not know that? How do they not know it just cuts right through the wind? As a matter of fact, it sucks it into the wind. How do they not know that part of it? Incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I trust me. I don't think that there's anything that they don't know, and I'd like to believe that in the grand scheme of things, we have a whole bunch of very, very bright people that we talk to, you and I, on a regular basis, through this channel and through the chat, and people that really are on the cutting edge of knowing and figuring out stuff that is not so widely known or accepted, right? But I also don't think that any single person here has figured out something that somebody at that particular place hasn't known for a very, very, very long time.
Oh yeah.
And, that's just plain and simple. Like, there's some, we might be smart, but we ain't all that, like there's people and budgets and abilities that they're afforded and have been afforded for, more than a half a century at this point, that would put them light years ahead of anything that, a mind with average, a great mind with an average ability to acquire, stuff to work with, would be able to achieve or figure out. It's what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff that I work with and show, and I always say this, that's all Tesla's stuff.
Yeah.
They already know it. So when they know that you're right over the target, they'll come and get you. And that's it. Because they've already built it. They know what to look for. There's no question whatsoever. So you may be showing something that you don't know is right over it, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they know the knock on the door, because they've already built it. And they had this tech a long time ago, long before I ever got to play with it. So, yeah, they already know, and they know which things are over Unity. They've already solved that equation. They have it. And it's just a matter of the economy is why they don't put it out there. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, again, sometimes there's deductive reasoning that ought to take place. Like, for instance, when they you got to remember, like, the F-22 Raptor, for instance, right? They that project was green lighted back in the late 80s, mid to late 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and really started production in the mid to late 90s. And by the time we all kind of knew about it and it was out there already for a while, you're talking about the early 2000s. Again, that a 20-year cycle before of development and production and use before you ever find out about it, which is pretty much par for the course. And to this day, it's still the air superiority fighter, supposedly, pretty much untouchable, right? But they had originally ordered, like, hundreds and hundreds of them be made, and then they only ended up, it mostly canceled the order, and then said, you know what, a handful of them's enough, and now you have a squadron of however many we have. It's not even that many. I forget exactly, but it's like 60 or 70 of them or something like that we have.
Yeah.
We right. So we decided we had the need for hundreds of these things, but something happened where we changed our mind and said, you know what? Yeah, I guess we just don't. Like, that's where the silliness is. So, and then you look at the fact that they keep on auditing the Pentagon and auditing all these other agencies and stuff, and nobody knows where any of these trillions and trillions of dollars go.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably more secret budget, allocations than there are not secret budget allocations. So,
That's true. Someone in here said Skinwalker Ranch.
yeah.
By the way, that's probably just a government base. Let me just clue you in on that. That's not a UFO base. That's a government base.
Well, the government owned it.
Yeah, it's underground government base. That's what it is. And that's why you don't dig. That's why you don't run Tesla coils over there. That's why all the phenomena happens, because they've already deployed it and they have the anti of whatever you're trying to do already in that area. And yeah, do they look like they're going to the side of the mountain? Yeah, a government base that's trying to hide something. already is way beyond your tech, so they would be able to look like it's flying into a mountain. There's no question about that. I mean, you could say they're aliens, and that's a great cover story, but it's the military.
Well, if they're underground like that and they have systems down there running and stuff, which actually and I think that's a great theory. But I'd be interested to know is if there's a difference at the of the resonant frequency of the Earth in that immediate area, like directly above the site. Like I wonder if there's frequency anomalies in the ground.
Yeah. Well, that happens over the world, and we just don't detect them all the time, but they're there. There's anti-gravity rocks out there that just in one little area. I mean, there are phenomenons like that happen that are just, it shows up in your lab when you're working and something just goes in reverse. And because you get a predictable reaction all the time, then you get something that goes in reverse and you're like, whoa, hold on. But then if you amplify that reverse thing, then you get something great out of it. And I've done that a couple times, and it happens in lifters and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The reverse of it's anti-gravity. The lifter itself is probably ion wind. It's when you hit that reverse of it that you really understand the difference in how the whole thing works. And not a lot of people find it. Some people find it on accident. So,
right.
And by the way, and people always talk about lasers, and that's a big thing. Let me just tell you that there's something more advanced than that out there. I mean, think about it. They're using sound. They're using frequency to destroy the human body and crowd control. Then you take a laser with it. You're not just shooting out beams of light. You can shoot out beams of plasma. And they'll destroy something as it sits there. So when you see that phaser shot in Star Trek where the body just like goes to dust, that's exactly what they could do to you. And I can tell you, if they haven't figured it out by now, they're really close to it, because it wouldn't take me long to figure it out if I had a year and a big budget to do it. So, yeah, they're all interconnected. And once you start interconnecting them and putting the parts together, yeah, we're not talking lasers anymore. We're talking phasers, man. They're beyond it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not making a recommendation to anybody, but if you want to try to knock a drone out, just get yourself a radar array and run it 180 degrees out of phase, and get yourself another radar array and run it 180 degrees out of phase, and then try to position them to cross section on whatever's in the sky and see what happens. You know?
Yeah. Well, all you gotta do is create turbulence. The way to take an aircraft out is to create turbulence. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. If you create a resonance inside of that plane that they can't control, that plane goes down. And all you have to know is the size of it, the amount of metal there. That's a quick calculation. Then all you got to do is direct the energy there. And when you get to resonance, it doesn't matter the distance so much. It matters the frequency. Once they have your frequency, you're done. And all they have to do is bounce off a beam right off your plane to find that frequency. And then, boom. And how did they learn that? Well, World War II came around, and then they knocked something down in the sky with frequency with their radar. They managed to match something that they weren't ready to find, and then, boom, it came down. Now, could that have been an alien ship? Sure, it could. Could have been Roswell. But right then and there, you knew they had it. And all they had to do is look at it and go, okay, now we know what it is. Now all we have to do is amplify it. And then they go back to Tesla, and Tesla tells you all about frequency and how to make something resonate. Well, when you put it in resonance, you put it in turbulence, because it doesn't want to be in your atmosphere anymore. It wants to break free of that. As soon as that happens, man, then they come down. That's the exact technology they use.
Yep. Shake it to pieces.
Yeah, that's why AI is scary, because if they get a hold of that and they don't know the difference, you know what I mean? We're all doomed. I don't want that much trust going into the computer. They have it, and then they start deploying it to all of us, man. We're just dust in the wind, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to give that much trust to anybody over me, my well-being, and my family, or ability to survive. Like, can't we all just like leave it all alone? Right? Like, isn't that easier said than done, I suppose? Isn't it funny what people's prides will do?
Yeah, well, you know what? The planes are aluminum. Aluminum hold eddy currents in them. They studied this a lot. Okay. Creating vibration in aluminum is easy. I do it every day in my garage. That is the easiest substance to get that into. It's different than steel. It's different than everything else. Aluminum, titanium. You can resonate the living daylights out of that stuff, man. If you know what you're doing, yeah, there's no plane that's safe when you have that kind of tech. That's why, as a civilian, man, they will stop you dead in your tracks if they find out you have it. You will not. You don't pass go. You don't collect $200, man. You're going straight to jail.
Well,
That's the
not
way
for
it works.
anything, but like throw it out there. Like, let's say that there's plasma balls, and that's what we're sort of dealing with is some energy sort of phenomena. Well, energy is just as susceptible to resonant frequency and interference. So, like, in fact, probably even easier so, because that's at its root what it is.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's why I was saying, it's like, if you wanted to ever fiddle around and play, get something with that could have directional propagation with a pretty high output, rig it the way you need, and then point it right at what you. It's no different than those like things like they even sell them as toys for kids. It's like the microphone with a little dish around it, and it's a directional microphone that just you could point it, and you could point it 100 yards away, 300 feet away, where like you could hear a whisper. It's the same sort of thing where you just need that directional exchange. And then
Oh yeah,
there
they
was a
used
guy,
to
there
have
was a guy that was shooting 9 millimeters, by the way. He was on the news. He was shooting his 9 mil at one of the drones. Police came, asked him what happened. The cop was literally shocked because I think I don't think the cop said, he's like, to be honest with you, I didn't think you were going to tell me the truth. I appreciate your honesty. Because the guy
but
was
you're
like,
going
well,
to jail anyway.
right. So the guy was like, so how much trouble am I in? He's like, well, since you were honest with me, I'm going to be honest with you. And I hate to tell you, he's like, but you're in trouble, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Where was he at? New York?
They didn't, they might have said, but I would suspect he was in Jersey. Hey,
That's 10
listen,
years.
regardless, in my opinion, you should be able to shoot that shit down. I don't really care, but the government owns the skies.
Yeah, but not according to New Jersey. You're going to jail.
Listen, I'm not for the irresponsible discharge of weapons and firearms, but define irresponsible. Is having a UFO fly over your house and it being allowed to be there and you not giving any answers, is that responsible? Well, I'm sorry. When there's nobody wanting to accept accountability, if you're the one that says, you know what, I'm accountable for my own well-being, my concerns, and my safety, nobody else is doing anything about it, I hate to tell you, put that guy, charge that guy, bring him to trial, and have me be on that jury because he's going home. He's
Yeah.
going home. And you know what? Don't be surprised if that's the ultimate outcome of this. They'll put it on the news. Yeah, man, you're in big trouble. But, the DA weighing this all out and, might end up saying, like, well, I don't know.
I guess it really matters where the bullets land, doesn't it? If they hurt somebody, he's not getting out of it. That's for sure.
Listen, knowing what's beyond your target is always a thing, and shooting a firearm up into the air is a good way to never know what lies beyond your target because you can't predict that ballistic trajectory. I mean, that's impossible. So it's
Yeah.
not like shooting a basketball from the other side of the court.
Yeah. Well, they were talking about the particle beam weapons. So check this out. When they did satellite dishes in the beginning, those are basically directed energy. So you're shooting an energy right at something, all right? And they call it high RF. Well, high RF would obliterate things on its way. Let's put it that way. Back in the day, now not so much, but back in the day when they first put them out, that's what they did.
Mhm.
So, can they get directed energy from other places? Absolutely. There's no question about that. Um, do they have the technology to pull off Tesla's directed energy beam? Yeah.
I think
You
so.
you can modify one of these dishes to do it. I won't say exactly how because that would be bad, but
Cool.
it's a directed energy weapon in itself and the way they concentrate it. So, yeah, I mean, they knew that back in what the 50s and 60s, and then they started showing it in Star Trek because they knew it was true. You didn't want to
Yeah.
be anywhere near one of these things.
I mean, the truth with that is that that's garage tech at this point. That's stuff that, you know,
Yeah.
that's garage tech. Just
That's so bad.
go
Some of this stuff,
to an old boatyard where they have like, you know, broken fishing boats and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, parts or whatever. You know, you could build yourself something crazy
oh
real
yeah,
fast. Yeah, with their radar arrays and their their little tiny sonars, even though they're not super powerful, like those little sonars and the transducers that come off the back of them.
oh yeah,
Listen, you you redo the circuitry on that just not even just a little bit, just a little bit, you know, and you'd be very surprised. Those little pings that come off those transducers are no joke, man. I mean, we used to go out to the Hudson Canyon shark fishing, tuna fishing, and stuff like that. Back when I was younger, and I mean, transducer will tell you that you're in 2,700 feet of water.
yeah.
I mean, that's 2,700 feet of water and every obstruction from you to the bottom. Think about that. Hanging off the back of your boat. That's this big.
Oh yeah, you can get some in real trouble with some of this tech if you know what you're doing. That's bad. Yeah. So they were talking about 5G was the thing. Let's see, Fringe and professors doubted it, and now they all use it. Yeah. Something rips metal apart. Somebody said it in here. Okay. Oh, it's talking about Hudson. Yeah. Well, you can't create a plasmoid inside of metal and not expect it to rip apart. And that's pretty much what he did. And it's not fairly hard to make a plasmoid. There's a lot of people out there researching it. And, I'm very happy to see that they are. But it really wasn't that hard to build. And if you know what you're doing, you can build those things all day.
Well, I also think that what was ripping some of his metal apart was counter-rotational torsion fields within the same piece of metal at the molecular level. So when you have, which makes sense with plasmoids too, because now you're dealing with these high torsion events creating cavitation at the molecular level, which would induce a plasmoid, which would, but it's all connected stuff. But I mean, yeah, that's real deal.
Yeah.
That's real deal, man.
Some of this stuff, man, it's just like, how do I say this? Everybody thinks it's magnetic fields. And you hear that term all over the place when it comes to this. And it's kind of the reverse, or how do I say this? The lack of eddy currents in the magnetic field that makes it so powerful in order to create it. So if you want to beat Lenz's law, then you can make a plasmoid. So that's what you need, because you need to be able to adjust the actual temperature wherever you want in your unit in order to create it. And when you're dealing with cavitation, it makes everything a little easier. So you could do it through that as well. There's more than one way to do it, but if you actually want to control it and know where it goes, you better be able to defeat Lenz's law. And that's really where it comes down to. So some of this stuff, yeah, you're making a plasmoid, but you're not doing it in the right way. It's deconstructive instead of constructive. And if you want to go fly your UFO with that, great, good luck. Don't call me. Matter of fact, tell me where you are so I can get out of that area when you start, because I don't want to be anywhere near you.
Yeah, there's like good and bad sides of both the coins of the constructive and deconstructive interferences that occur, for what it's worth. And one, one will deconstruct and basically make a lot of its components sacrificial too, as opposed to the other side, which will dematerialize, but in a more traditional way where it would like melt and short or something like that. So you have melt and short on one side of that scale, but then on the other side of the scale, you have molecular decomposition. So
Yeah.
they're highly different things, but
Oh
they
yeah.
but they're both sides of the same coin, which is just
Oh yeah.
interesting to think about molecular decomposition versus just melting.
Well,
It's
it's
just
like
we're more familiar with that one side of the coin. It's constantly the hot side of the coin.
it's the difference between having it like say 432 versus 444 on the Hertz scale.
Mm-hmm.
And you can clearly see the 432 is the correct frequency, and that 444 is garbage, and it's full of just bad stuff. So when you build something with the wrong frequency and you go to put it into a plasmoid and that's what you get, oh, it's deconstructive all day. That sucker is just going to start tearing through things, and it's bad. You're not getting the good side of anything.
Yep. But then you're also talking about the difference between decomposition and composition.
Yeah.
It's literally every polar opposite that you could think of. If you wanted to chart it out as far as like, an effect is concerned, you could chart out on the hot or cold side and where it falls. It's just very fascinating to think. But like then you talk about something like alchemy, and transmutation. So what is alchemy and transmutation? It's both sides of the coin. It's the
Mm-hmm.
decomposition and then the composition. But it's got to go in that sequence, not the decomposition to composition for it to be alchemy. So, yeah.
Yeah, alchemy is usually what gaining something as it goes, right? It's not so much subtracted. Well, I guess you could subtract it.
Well, it's about
It's a
breaking
Russell
breaking
scale.
something. It's about breaking something down and reconstituting it into something else.
I guess, yeah. Okay, you could take one thing away and then add two, and then you'd be all right. And it would change the molecular structure of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you put it in a state of flux, then it's easier to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the state of flux that's the key to it all. Is you have to have both, and then an area of transition. Yeah.
You know what I'd find funny is if they find out the atom is just fields instead of electrons in there. I, it would be hilarious because then it would explain why everything looks like it's pulling on something in an individual way, and then when you create resonance, it all pulls out the fields where they can't bounce back together, they can't pull back in, and then as soon as they do, you can change the structure of the atom. So I think that they'll get there someday. Now they'll still call it electron. I think we're going to be up in spaceships, and even if they know it's fields, they'll just call it electrons. I don't think they'll ever change that in science.
Yeah. I have my own theories on all this, and it's probably too much to chew right now for for purposes of this episode. But yeah, I mean, I think that the whole idea of defining these things as particles is it doesn't matter whether they are or they aren't. The fact is that it's a form of of stable condensed energy
Mm-hmm.
that's in a constant state of motion. And I like to think of those little Chinese toys where it has a handle and LED lights and a bar, and you spin it around And when you spin it around, the LED lights, they flash in sequence, and then it like reads like a sentence. Or maybe it'll just streak red around in a ring, and it looks like just a solid red ring as you spin this thing fast enough around at the right speed. What's the difference if it's just energy spinning or vibrating at such a speed that it appears to be what we would consider to be a particle? Because like a propeller on an airplane, it'll look like nothing's there, or it'll look like a disc,
Yeah.
And even though the blade can only be here or there at any given time, it's spinning so fast that if you were to put your finger into it, well, you're not going to have a finger instantaneously later, because for intents and purposes, it's more or less solid.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
more
you
or
ain't
less
having
solid
nothing.
at that point, right? There's, if you were to throw a tomato at a spinning propeller at high RPM, it's more catastrophic, but it's not dissimilar to throwing a tomato at a wall. The tomato's not going to go through unscathed just because, of the rate.
Yeah.
Unless if it's a bullet and the bullet's firing in sequence with the timing of the propeller, like they had that one figured out. But that's like beating the principle. And maybe you can beat that principle if you knew the sequence and speed of the movement of an atom, right?
Yeah.
No different than a bullet through a prop. But then what do you get out of that? What's the difference? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Isn't that why when they throw these things into each other, isn't that why when they collide they explode like they do? Because it's like throwing a tomato into a propeller, or throwing two moving propellers into each other. Isn't that sort of the deal?
Well, yeah, but I think, I don't say it. Like when they deal with the demon core and stuff, I think they just literally hold the thing out with such a frequency that the field on it pulled out. Then they split off part of the field, and it caused a chain reaction. And that's why they were.
Yeah, that's critical mass.
Yeah,
it's not a good look.
That's why they were worried, some of them, that it wouldn't stop. You know what I mean?
Well, but that's the whole entire idea behind both fusion and fission, is a cascading effect in either direction. A controlled cascade, and then sometimes an out of control cascade. And a nuclear bomb is the epitome of an out of control cascade of critical mass.
Yeah.
Which was my concern, by the way, whenever we were talking about, the ZPE and talking about, holding it open and whatnot, but then the negative effect on the hot side is that you have to have a system that's going to withstand all of that, because then the result is a short circuit. It's just, it'll cascade, but it'll cascade to a point, overload and fry.
Yeah, unless you get it to the point where the resonance is dead on, and that's what scares me about things. People want you to match the frequency of the earth, and they don't realize you don't want to do that. I get a lot of people that don't get why that's a bad thing, and it's runaway. You can't stop it at that point. It doesn't matter what circuit you have; it's a runaway, and it won't stop until it's bashed up and destroyed. But if you're creating that kind of energy, you don't want to be near it. I mean, not if it's doing that, because then it's going to double and triple and quadruple in the amount of energy you're going to get.
Yeah, you would have cascading effect, because the whole entire power of the earth is shaking at that frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you'd have constructive interference through magnitudes of,
Yeah, you never want direct resonance. You want sympathetic resonance. You want it to be close to it, but never nail it.
Yeah, picking up from it because it's in tune with, not necessarily in complete utter resonance with. Yeah, it makes total sense to me. I'm an interference guy. Interference is my favorite thing on the planet.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's intense, man. It's intense.
Yeah, I had a guy tell me today, or no, it was yesterday, and he kept emailing me back and forth on this, and I try to make a point to him. Okay, we did the hairpin circuit, right? And I explain it, and I think people look at patents in the wrong way. And you could go piece by piece by the patent and do it. And Dollar did that, and it's absolutely amazing, right? But when you're experimenting, you change it, but you get to the same result. So the hairpin circuit makes everything cold energy in the Tesla coil, right? And that's its intention. And if you don't know that, then go back and read what Tesla wrote again, because that was his goal. And it was safe to touch. And you could put the light bulb in water. Well, I've done all those things in the experimenting that I do. What was the critical understanding that Tesla was trying to give you? It was the air gap capacitor. So in the air gap capacitor, you have air in between. They're just two, pieces right here, right? You move it up, you move it down, whatever, and then it changes the capacitance. Well, when I put the rod down the center, I got a hole. I'm putting a rod in there, and between this level and here is where my capacitance changes. Well, in the air gap, it changes here to here, right? There's no difference. It's just geometry's changed. That's the only thing that I did, is I just changed the geometry. So if I ask that same person, can I take something that looks like a star when I wind it, and I create the exact same thing, are they going to resonate? You see, most people would get lost at that point. Well, why? They're the exact same frequency. I built them exactly the same. You get what I'm saying? Does it have
Okay.
to be a Tesla coil in order to oscillate? No. Sean builds triangles. He builds a pyramid. But did you notice his primary was just a little round tube underneath with just wire wrapped like this? And it didn't go around the pyramid at all. It didn't go inside of it. It didn't go around it. It simply resonated at the same frequency as the wire and turned it on.
Yeah.
It's
Everything of what you're saying, by the way, right now, this is all 1000% in direct correlation with that second cast that we did with that whole chart.
Oh yeah, it is.
And the manifest of energy and its different phases, and it's all just it's all a numbers game of geometries and frequencies and amplitudes, and how it interacts based on the geometry and the distance. It's all it is, and literally the distance is a major a factor that can be adjusted to determine what type of observable discharge and effect that you're going to get. Like, that's it. It's like, and it makes sense, because when you're dealing with something with a potential and something with a frequency, or something two frequencies, that distance is going to be critical to see what those waveform interference patterns are going to do, how it all breaks off, and how it manifests. It's why you end up with static charges. It's why you end up with plasmatic discharges. It's why you end up with arcing, magnetic fields. It's all just a constituent of the same, depending on these variables and how they interact, which the geometry is the critical factor of that, considering that we're all surrounded by a world of potential. Think about if you were to take something like an insulator with a conductor in the middle, but in like a sheet form. Call it a triangle sheet. Now you sit there and you are able to bring this up to the level, okay, of a thunderstorm cloud, okay, where any electrical potential that would usually want to reach the ground by arcing because it's distant, okay, no longer is going to occur, because the path of least resistance is now this big triangular potential, you
Mm-hmm.
know, depending on how far away from the clouds, you know, uh, discharge is going to be, is going to depend on what effect you get. It could throw off huge magnetic fields. It could start glowing and enveloped in plasma, depending on how far it is away, just based on what it is alone. You know, I've never seen that done because it's impractical and there's no reasonable way to do that, I suppose. But you get the gist of what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you'll find, by the way, I just want to answer this real quick. I kept it up. Yeah, Charles does do what I say. It does resonate that way. That's why he continues to get plasmoids, even though he turned it off. It still continues to burrow through that that acrylic that he has around that coil because it's in such good resonance. If it wasn't, then he wouldn't get that. So he's continually running the thing without thinking he's running it. You put it in the drawer and it's still running.
Right. Well, in the molecular level, his system is in resonance
Yes.
at the molecular level. Plus, because because it's on the cold side, you know, it doesn't accumulate; it decomposes. So it's sacrificial in a certain way, and that's why you have those bubbles that form, is because there's sacrifice and cavitation occurring, and then those charges also get stored in those cavities that it's created, you know, through like little swirls of magic that occur. Awesome. Gerald systems are incredible.
Yeah.
Mind-blowingly incredible. Very cool.
One of the other thing is, you know, they say it runs better, or some people say that they've seen that when the moon's out, things run better, and then when the sun's out, they run worse. Well, you ever figure out why that is? Like when the sun's out, it's using the energy, and it's creating energy around you and put it into use. Well, when it's not out, the moon's out. It's not using that energy in the same way. Therefore, there's more of it to use. So it's a simple little thing that you would do with your Tesla coils that you could figure that out with. It all has to do with the usable energy in that area at that time. Whether the sun's using it up and making it into like a color of, you know what I mean? Anything like that, well, then that kind of tells you what's going on. It's using the energy. That's why when people say plasma, I start laughing because you're using the energy. And sometimes you're not looking to use it. You're just looking to borrow from it. You're trying to nudge up against it and pull some from it. You don't want plasma busting out of everything. It's a waste of energy.
So day to night, it plays back right into one of those early episodes that we did too, which was all the relative ratios and of energy to mass that are present at a given time. So during the daytime, you have a much higher, radiation potential that exists that throws the ratio up much higher on the energy side of things than when it drops off at nighttime, when realistically those that direct radiation that we got during the day is only in a residual state, as to whatever was trapped atmospherically, rather than having the direct. So that ratio changes. And then because that ratio changes, the functionality of the systems change, because they're directly linked with, that ratio in the immediate area.
Yeah, I can.
Ratio.
I did energy things at night with my Tesla coil. I go outside. It's like 30 degrees outside. And let me tell you, the whole experiment changes. You want to go out there because it's dark outside, right? So that you can see light bulbs and stuff like that. But your experiment changes. It's not the same experiment you had in your garage at 70 degrees. Not at all. It completely changed how it works. And the Tesla coil, people don't understand this. They cap the top and bottom. That's why the radiant energy is a little bit bigger. When you uncap the top and bottom, it goes in a little bit, right? But then if you set it a little bit out of resonance, then you can push the field further without getting any breakout and wasting your energy in that plasma. So as soon as you get energy in the plasma coming out, there goes your field. It starts to collapse. And it goes back down to the normal rate. if you can push it without pushing that energy out in the plasma, it goes much further. A lot of people don't understand that about Tesla coils, and they just think, oh, it's got to shoot plasma out of it. That's what Tesla coils do. No, that's not what you want out of them.
No,
that's not how you get the energy to work. You're
right.
getting a complete loss. Tesla knew that. He didn't run those things with plasma hanging out everywhere. You know,
I mean, listen, you don't need a Tesla coil to run a spark gap. Get plasma. I'm saying.
no, spark gap's a little different. They're jumping between two things. The Tesla coil is shooting it out. It's like if I wanted to take DC flyback and put it on my fingers, right? And I wanted it to shoot out, it wouldn't do it. But then if I brought my fingers together, they would, because they shoot against each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Tesla coil is different. It has so much pressure in it. It's a pump. It's shooting the stuff out of it as it's pulling it up. So then if I wanted to take my fingers, I can go like this and shoot them out this way and just have lightning bolts shooting out of my fingers. So it's a different style of energy altogether.
Yeah. It really is. I mean, what's interesting to think though about spark gaps for what it's worth and plasma discharges and
Go ahead.
the practical application. I mean, obviously it's used for like creating O2 and sanitizing and killing smells and things of that nature. That's because it's highly, it's a high oxidizer. And we've already discussed the relevance of breaking down different moisture and compounds in the air, through like, hydrogen capture and things of that nature, breaking the oxygen from hydrogen, and the relevance of that in the whole spectrum of energy to matter. But, where I actually came across it for the first time was I used to hunt all the time, right? And they came out with an ozonics, which was a portable ozone generator, basically a portable spark gap generator, which was super cool technology. And it was wildly expensive. And I didn't have a pot to piss in at the time, but like for Christmas one year, I was like, I really want to get one of these. Could I get one of these for Christmas? And yeah, it ended up under the tree. But let me tell you, man, these things dump tons of ozone, and they kill your smell and all the smell downwind. So deer just don't know you're there. And ozone's something they smell all the time because it naturally occurs so prevalently anytime there's a storm or a dewy night or anything like that. To the point where it doesn't bother them or concern them in the least. Deer used to like literally be right next to me and have no idea.
Wow.
Which is crazy because I mean they catch you smell from hundreds of yards away. A lot of times they won't even come near you. So, yeah, that thing was really, really incredible and opened my whole entire mind to that technology. It was one of the first exposures to this sort of stuff that I had. Well, I wanted to bring it up just because I thought it was so. That's how I kind of got linked into knowing about any of this stuff in the first place, and then fiddling around with that thing, which was, kind of dangerous and fun at the same time. Because more or less, it was a mini Tesla coil that they spaced out purposely for plasmatic discharge, very high voltage. Yeah. Anyway, and rant, but yeah, you have $700 and another $200 for batteries. You could have one.
Yeah, not for me. No, thank you. So somebody was talking about quartz. They were talking about quartz in the comments quite a bit. By the way, just so we understand this, okay? The geometry in the coil matters. And how do I say this? Every time you go around in the geometry of the coil, you're putting frequency in each one. Well, you're getting frequency, you're getting resonance, you're getting all the octaves and tones, right? All that, right? But what's quartz? Quartz is that geometry with all of it in there.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you unlock it? Well, the key to unlocking it is you have to know what the geometry is. Then you get the frequency from the geometry and you put the resonance, everything in there. Mm-hmm. Most people just say, I found the magnetic field in it, right? But they're not unlocking it. If you want that thing to light up, you better know all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you can figure that part out, then you'll have it. Then you have the Ark of the Covenant. Not until, and a lot of people don't understand that. They say, well, I have frequency in my room where I play the radio station, right? And I feel my crystal doing something. Well, yeah, you might have hit one part of it. You say, I have a magnetic field in the room. Well, yeah, you probably hit one part of it. Okay. I have water in the room. Yeah, that's the basis of communication to crystal. You hit one part of it. Okay. When you get them all, that's when you've got it. That's why it's so interesting. That's why the Gerald's coil is a representation of like quartz or something like that, where it's already in there on the earth and they have it. He has mathematically created it in a coil form.
Yeah. It's an analog. It's a crystal analog is what it is. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's what I mean. That's what people don't understand. That's why it's so hard to figure out what's going on. The fact that he even has that thing built the way he does is mind-blowing.
Even when we did the crystal episode, one thing that I think I had in mind, but it kind of came and went at the time, is really if you want to think about what crystals do, they actually take the microscopic and the quantum phenomena that are known, and they bring it out macroscopically because of their structure. So all of these things that are present at the microscopic level and all these phenomena, they're able to, through their crystal structure, manifest macroscopically. And that's why they're capable of the resonances that they are. That's why they're capable of having variation in resonance depending on the axis that it's cut, for purposes of tuning into different frequencies. That's why it's able to amplify and project different energies, both giving and taking, is because that's exactly how these quantum phenomena work. On that small level, this just does it at an observable level. So when you then take that and you take all those same exact concepts and then you make a physical analog of it through another energy system like a coil system, now you're capable of achieving similar effects. When you combine the two, that's what I'm saying. When you take the two, now you have, because the coils, they don't really, they work off of the same, again, it's an analog, but it really makes a macroscopic effect. If you take something and then that's capable of the microscopic effect and the macroscopic effect, and then put it into something more powerful at the macroscopic level, that's an analog to it. Now you're working on all the playing fields.
Yeah. That's kind of the point here, isn't it?
Right. Now you're working on all of the playing fields. And something that's tunable and controllable on both ends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It takes a long time to get there. I can tell you that. And what I'm working with only has like one or two things to it, but wow, it's important to know.
Yeah. So what happens now when you take the crystal, integrate it with the coil, but then take the coil and integrate it with other coils in a further geometric pattern? What happens then?
Wow. That's kind of the thing, isn't it? You want to find out?
Yeah, right. Of course.
I don't think that you have to have the crystal inside the coil at all. I don't think it's necessary.
No integration. I mean, you don't need to, but I don't think it hurts.
I think, okay, when it's done, you're going to submerge that coil in water, and you're going to have minerals all around it. Then it'll truly do its business. And you're going to have quartz in there and everything else and all these different crystals, and you'll finally find it doing the right thing, what you wanted it to do in the beginning. And that's it. And Gerald's got some experiments coming up with his coiled water, which he said are going to be totally awesome. And I believe it. But it really changes how you see things, because now you're communicating on the right scale, because you're not You don't have to have it in the center of the coil. The ether is in the center of the coil. The surrounding effects that come out of that just have to be in the room, but they have to be able to be activated in the room. So
I'm curious. I have a couple curiosities now. First off, I mentioned this in the comments before, but I don't know that it was either understood or gained any traction. But I'm interested in seeing your same experiments, except with dry sand or whatever mixed with Epsom salt, because Epsom salt has magnesium structure that's attached to a fully intact water molecule that's solid, which is just an unusual molecular bond, because usually the water molecule is not intact when it's a constituent in a chemical compound. So basically what that means is that it's made of liquid water, but it's solid. So it's not wet, but it's wet.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll have to give that a try.
So something like that might be interesting.
I put the energy into sand by itself, and if it's hotter energy, all it does is dry out the sand quickly.
Yeah.
And if it's really high, then it'll start crystallizing it. Cold energy, it still passes through it. But when there's no water whatsoever, it kind of does nothing.
So that was the part where my curiosity of it peaked.
Yeah, I can see why.
Having it trapped up in a molecular form that's dry, so to speak, is that enough to accommodate for its absence? That's sort of where I'm going with that. The other thing is, I wonder, seeing as quartz is a player in this, both in the mineral level and everything like that, I just wonder what taking straight SiO2, like, ceramic coating, like you would put on your car, but like the good stuff, not like some McGuire's nonsense, the stuff that comes in like a little jar for $100. I wonder what taking that and coating the coil in it would be like.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah, because maybe that would negate the need for the SiO2 composition in the sand or the surrounding medium, generally just by being coated in it itself. Just food for thought.
I think I want to build crystals by putting frequency into it. That's what I want to do. Put the crystal in the water and the chemicals, whatever you need in there. And I put the cold energy in there and put the frequency in there while it's building. That's what I want to do. And I just want to see the crystal structure as it builds. If it's going to change the structure based on the frequency that I put in. So some of these things.
What kind of crystal are you thinking about building?
I don't know. I just want to get the stuff that makes the crystal. You know what I mean? How they would in a microwave or something like that, or it could be a salt crystal, as long as it grows in the water.
I think this one I made it out of it was a kit that was purchased for me, but I think this was like fertilizer dust.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what it was. It was some kind of potassium. So.
All I want to do is just prove that it puts the frequency into it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, listen, man, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I follow all this stuff you do religiously,
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Of course. But yeah, it's neat stuff. I'd like to see a couple of drones fall out of the sky.
We're getting there, man. I'm
curious to know what they are.
Yeah, there's a few more experiments I got to finish out. I got to finish out the over unity and do that and get that finalized. And then the resonance between two coils that are matched, I need to do that one. And as soon as I get both those done, man, then it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pretty much open season on what I get to do. But if I don't get these out of my head, Joe, they're going to rattle in there forever, and I can't have that.
I hear that. Have you heard from Gerald?
No, I haven't.
No?
It's starting to worry me a little bit. So I'm going to call up his house and see, make sure he's all right. But I think it's just his computer is what he said. He came on a couple chats a couple times, but you never know, man. So life happens, so I got to make sure.
it does, but I think that both the camaraderie that exists paired with the type of nature of some of the stuff we talk about, it's always worth a check-in.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, that would probably be a safe bet. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if it was nothing like weird or like conspiratorial, like I mean, there's a possibility he was working on a project and like something, God forbid, like this stuff isn't exactly the safest
Yeah, no kidding.
necessarily.
You
So
have to tell me that twice.
yeah,
All right, Joe, I got to get out of here. I got to go pick up my son-in-law from work.
yes, sir. Well, it's been nice, and thank you everybody in the chat. And
Yes.
if you don't mind, I'm starting to release some stuff, and it's all teaser stuff on my channel. I put up a video of me making tacos. It's a total joke. It's not a cooking video. Really, it's not a cooking video. I do not make tacos like that. But I think I'm putting it up there for entertainment at this point, just to hold some time and get at least a few people on my channel for when I actually start releasing like the content I'm looking to create. So if you have a chance, go ahead and look at the videos and like and subscribe if you can, and just know that more stuff is coming.
Yeah, I got it put in the chat there. Your site right there, so they can look it up and do the subscribing.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and any support is really appreciated. Like I said, when I start putting stuff out, I'd like to start with more than a dozen followers or whatever. So
right on, man. Right on. It's gonna get that taco one's funny, man. So
they were pretty good. I don't make tacos like that generally. Usually I make like more al pastor tacos or something like legit. Cooking's a thing of mine, but that was a total joke, and I thought it was all right.
Oh yeah, that's good. You got to put on there your new music as well.
For sure. Did you want to play that before we go?
Oh, let me pull it up. Hold on.
I mean, that was a stupid, silly song, but it exists. I didn't write it. Also, by the way, that was I asked AI to write it, and then I put it into Sono. So it's my idea. This is not my original work.
Oh, can we play it then? I mean, do you have the rights?
Oh yeah, no,
I
have the rights to it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I pay him $20 a month for rights.
Hey buddy, it's really not that hard. You're staring at the wall like a clueless retard. There's power in the socket, it's waiting for you, but you gotta line it up, yeah, follow the clues. Small hole, big hole, around 1, 2. Don't mix them up or you'll blow the whole fuse. I'm trying to help, but you're testing my soul. Listen to me, it's just 3 holes. There are 3 holes, can't you see? A tiny one, a bigger one, and one that's curvy. 3 holes, don't make it a mess. It's an outlet, not your ex's weird request. Alright, listen close, I'll break it down slow. The skinny prong goes in the little hole. The fat one slides in the bigger groove, and the round one crowns it. Man, what's your move? I'm sweating bullets, I'm losing my mind. This socket tango shouldn't take this much time. Plug it in, dude, just reach your goal. For the love of God, there are 3 holes. There are 3 holes, plain as day. No 4th dimension, no tricks to play. 3 holes, it's not advanced math, but if you don't get it soon, I'll kick your ass. Pull the port, like it's a Rubik's Cube. Upside down, backwards. What's wrong with you, dude? Should I call an electrician, a priest, a shrink? It's a goddamn outlet on a riddle to think. Okay, look, you see this? This is the plug, and this is the socket. The little prong goes in the little hole. The big prong, big hole. The round one, guess what? Round hole. How? Are you this dumb? There are 3 holes, follow through. Small, big, round, man, what's wrong with you? 3 holes, jam thing in. If I have to show you again, I'm drinking gin. 3 holes is all it takes. Don't complicate it with your dumb mistakes.
Oh,
Three hole is in this song, but you'll probably plug it in wrong.
That's dedicated to Mike and Benny.
oh man, that's great. A
No,
3-0.
yeah, I asked AI to, like, without asking it too much. I just said, I was like, hey, this is what I want the song about. This is the style I want it in. And I was like, I want it to be funny, be a little raunchy. It's fine. It came up with that thing about of something about, like, the ridiculous thing your ex wanted to do or whatever it said. I was like, 'cause it was talking about the three.
Oh, man. That's bad.
Yeah, it was funny.
So I just want to show everybody, by the way, one more member, guys. If we get one more member on the channel, this is what goes on there as one of the emojis for the channel. So just so you guys know, that's the next one we're putting in. So
Come
one more
on, that's
member, we're in there.
that's worth the subscription in itself. Like, I mean, to have the three old, emoji. Come on.
That way you can put it in the chat all day long. You know what I mean? When you follow the channel. That's just so awesome.
Oh,
So
amazing.
all right, guys. I want to thank everybody for watching today, man. We had a great show. Joe, thank you for coming and doing this with me. I appreciate it.
As always, peace and love, everybody. See you in the chat.